It's dead. Happy Lightning Friday, everyone. What is up? We've got
How you doing?
Jestopher in the house. What's up, man? You know what? I'm going to grab some headphones real quick. This phone does not have good speakers. And, Jestopher is one of the developers on Amboss.space, incredible Lightning Graph Explorer.
All right.
Thanks so much for the introduction, for hosting this. I got it recording and streaming on YouTube.
No doubt, man. Just keep grinding on that great project. We also are waiting on Chaz from the Lightning Junkies podcast. Hopefully he shows up at some point. But he's another co-host of ours. Yeah, I think we're gonna really open up the floor today. Get a lot of people talking. See how everyone's week has been. Hopefully y'all routed a lot of payments. How's your week been, Justin?
Yeah, the dynamic. Well, it's been pretty good. I haven't exactly been killing it on the routing front, but I think that's mainly just because of kind of some of the mempool dynamics.
It's been a weird week as far as fees go. We've had a little bit of downward pressure on the difficulty due to what seems to be some action in China. We really don't know the whole story on the ground there, but it seems like a lot of Shenzhen miners have been pulled offline, been getting the squeeze from the government over there. So that's been making things interesting as well. You have any thoughts on that, Jestopher?
Yeah, it looks like the last I heard, the difficulty adjustment is predicted for 19% down. So that's going to mean a lot faster blocks as soon as those miners come back online in different areas. So I'm pretty excited about an empty mempool to open up some channels in the near future following that difficulty adjustment.
Yeah, that'll be nice. So yeah, 19% down, that's not insignificant. I think my takeaway is that there's definitely some pressure there. There seems like to be a ton of miners that have been ripped offline. Seems like a lot are making an exodus, some towards the United States even, it seems, which is pretty cool. Would love for Texas to become a powerhouse in the game. But I don't think 19% accounts for all of China. So there's definitely people closer to the government who are still running. I'm sure the government's got their own mining operations on the side going too. It's really interesting dynamics, and it's really hard to get full view without boots on the ground and in the government over there. So who knows what's really going on? But all I could say is that any decentralization, especially decentralization out and away from authoritarian countries like China, is a positive thing. So the amazing thing is, like, we're seeing this great uprooting of the miners, and Bitcoin is pretty much functioning normally, and it's great to see the design of the system holding up. And maybe fees are a little bit more expensive, but hell, within 2 weeks we're gonna get our adjustment. Hopefully things clear out, and we'll be back to low fees for doing our on-chain operations. So always an amazing thing to see. It's like really crazy when we get big events. Things are mostly just operating like it's business as usual.
Yeah, it's a really nice thing. I mean, just that I think that difficulty adjustment is probably one of the most beautiful parts of the entire protocol, because it just adjusts to the demand and supply for
Yeah, it really is. Like, the most ingenious part of
kind
it.
of adjust with the feed, which people use the network.
And the normies still don't really understand it. Like, they're still under the impression that if I go and I take, vast state resources to start mining Bitcoin, that we're going to be producing more of them. And it's pretty crazy that, we're still, like, it's something like 12 years out, right? And, people still don't understand how the system works and where the real ingenuity in it is. So, still early days, all things considered.
Yeah, spot on, because like the China mining ban seems to be like a FUD line for normies, but you know what we can recognize is that it just improves decentralization, and we'll be able to move that hash power to freer areas. I heard some movements about lots of folks going to Texas and I think Maine, I heard, and also Kazakhstan.
Wow, Maine,
So
Kazakhstan in the mix. That's cool. All right, we also got Chaz.
Yeah.
Chaz finally popped up over here. What's up, Chaz? Chaz is the host of the Lightning Junkies podcast. #1 Lightning Network podcast in the game. What's up, Chaz? How's your week been?
What's going on, man? It's been pretty good. I did an interview with Christian Decker today, and that was like mind blowing. So I'm still kind of high off that interview, kind of.
Sweet.
But this week's been pretty good. How about yourself?
Good, man. Busy as usual. It's really just a really busy summer for me, all in all. Got a lot of spinning of plates, but hey, man, it's all worth it. Working on really fulfilling things, and hopefully we could get some of those products out to everyone else. But yeah, it's been a good week. Have you guys got around to updating your nodes this week? We were talking about the big L&D update last week.
I'm not sure if BTC Pay server has updated on their end yet. They're the way that I primarily use Lightning right now is my BTC Pay server installation. So I'm kind of reliant on them to have their stuff in a row, whatever.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think any of the big platforms have updated their stuff. So my big, public nodes, I've just left on 12.1. Started messing around with 0.13, just in one of our testnet stacks, and it's been fun just going through all the documentation and seeing all the upgrades. Talking with some other infrastructure engineers about what's going on with it. Some of the devs and their grievances. But yeah, it seems like it's going to take a little time for everyone to roll out all their updates and for everyone to get on the same page. But yeah, there's tons of goodies in it, and I'm really excited for everyone to get upgraded in due time.
So you guys kind of started the show by talking about like how much you've routed so far and stuff. I'm just curious, would you guys be willing to put a number on how much you've routed this week?
Chaz, you're coming out a little crackly. I don't know if it's just me or if anyone else is hearing it, but it seems like your mic is like overblown a little bit. It's running hot, as they say. Yeah, if anyone else wants to talk about their routing fees as of late, I haven't checked my stats on my nodes, but at the same time, I'm also really not a big routing guy, at least not currently. So yeah, if you want to come up and talk about your experiences routing in the past week, feel free to send a request. We'll bring you on stage. We really want to open it up this episode. Topics list is a little sparse. We got one really interesting item been working on with Open Noms. We'll bring that up a little later. Hopefully you could join us. But yeah, really looking to hear from a whole bunch of people today. So just throw in a request if you ever want to talk about anything. But me personally, no, not a lot of stuff routed this week. Jestopher,
just
how about
you? My Raspberry Blitz, and let's see, this week let's see, earned 99,000 Satoshi in fees.
Damn, that's nothing to scoff
And
at.
I think most of that earnings is from routing to loop node. So just it's kind of a nice way to kind of focus all of that liquidity that you're providing to retail, which is kind of the assumption, because you know the loop is built into RTL and Thunder Hub, and so it makes it easy for those retailer nodes or other people just selling goods to easily get inbound liquidity, and then Lightning Labs will throw a premium on that liquidity, but it just makes it really nice to have that submarine swap service be able to kind of like pull that liquidity and allocate it based on just the demand all over the network. So you've got like one centralized sink for liquidity, and then they're able to distribute it based on those requests in the market.
Incredible. Damn, Jestopher, did you just give up your cheat code? I think you did, in what?
Well, actually, one thing that I'm curious about is whether we're going to see more submarine swap services pop up. Because, you know, what we're doing at amboss.space, you know, we're kind of looking at we noticed like most of the page views are on the loop node. So that's where you're finding the most competition just to provide that liquidity. And you could publicly see the pricing that, you know, myself as well as the other nodes are providing there.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned RTL as your dashboard earlier. We've got Suheb, the lead dev of RTL, Ride the Lightning. He's going to be joining us on stage real shortly. Going to add him. And it seems like Chaz is coming back too after some technical difficulties. Let's see how those guys are sounding. Chaz, you back?
I hope so.
Still a little crackly, but definitely better than earlier. How about you, Suheb? You with us?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, you can hear you. How you been? How's your week been?
Yeah, doing good. I just wanted to comment on providing liquidity to loop node. You said that it is, Jestopher gave up his cheat code, right? I wanted to say that it's actually not, right? Providing liquidity to loop node is not an easy thing. There are actually minimum capital requirements, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
And second, it'll suck away your liquidity. You have to actually manage it very closely. So you have to keep watching your fee rates and also how lopsided your channel balances are. Because if your fee rates are low, all of your liquidity will suck into the loop node, and then sometimes the channel gets closed also because the traffic is largely one way. It rarely comes back. It only goes into the loop node.
So you need to have liquidity going into it, right? So
yeah.
Right, so it's one directional. So you got to open up a channel to it, right? And then once it goes all the way to the other side, you got to rebalance it because it's not going to come the other way, right?
Yeah, and then rebalancing is also expensive. It's not easy. It's not cheap, right? So
because you have to pay the on-chain fees, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And in the high fee environments, it's even more expensive. So you got to be even more scrupulous. Yeah, I think you also brought up a good point there with routing. It's not just like a set it and forget it thing. It's not like you just open one channel and you're like, oh yeah, I'm great. I'm making routing fees now. It's like an active process. If you're being a routing node and you want to make some real revenue on the Lightning Network, it's like not only do you have to sacrifice the liquidity that you have to, for lack of a better word, stake up in these channels, but you have to be actively managing them and either opening up new channels when they get exhausted, or you got to just pay for rebalancing. So yeah, I mean, if you want to become a routing node on the network and for it to be worth your while, you gotta be active with it. It's not like I said, set and forget it. It's like managing a living and breathing thing. So I think that's a giant misconception that people have.
Yeah, and one thing to also keep in mind is, when you are actually providing liquidity, who are you providing it to? Where are you sitting in the network, right? Ideally, if you want to be a good node, a good routing node, you need to find central points in the network graph, right? And typically, central points would be where traffic can flow in both the directions, right? It should not be flowing in one direction. So in case of loop, for instance, right, it's a high demand service. So it creates, direction of liquidity flow in one direction only. That is liquidity flowing towards the loop node, right? So it's a difficult node to provide liquidity to. But ideally, if you want to be a good routing node, you should try to find central points in the network where the traffic is flowing in both the directions. That's where you get good benefit of running a profitable routing.
But when you say that the fact that flow to loop is largely in one direction, doesn't that lead to the demand and then the fees really paying off there just because of the nature of it?
Absolutely, yeah. So the thing is, there's a capital requirement as well, right? So yes, you can make a lot of fees, but you have to also commit a lot of capital. So minimum channel requirement is 8 million sats. I think last time I opened a channel to loop node. So that's a lot of capital that you have to commit to the node or to that particular channel.
Yeah, that's a good point you make too. A lot of people don't know that you really just can't open up channels willy-nilly. I mean, by default, there's no limits on a node that you'll just provision. But these bigger operators, they have minimal channel requirements that you need to put up in terms of capital to open channels to them. It doesn't make sense for them to be like dealing with smaller channels where they could potentially be dealing with like these small amounts of change in the forms of really small UTXOs once they need to close that channel out. So these bigger operators, they prefer to have these higher limits. It also works as a level of quality control of the peers that open channels to them. And the way that the justice system works in Lightning, if you try to cheat someone, you essentially lose your whole balance. So you're less likely to pull shenanigans if you're expending larger amounts of capital. So it's a really interesting dynamic of the system. So I'm glad you brought that up too.
I might actually diverge a little bit from Suhaib's approach because I'm not sure that rebalancing can ever restore liquidity. So, which Suhaib didn't actually say, but I did want to clear that up. That you won't be able to do rebalances to really restore that liquidity that you might lose to the loop node. But one thing that you can do to actually increase your inbounds liquidity is to create balanced channels, and so or you could purchase a channel through the auction with pool, or you can just kind of create your own trust network where you've kind of earned some reputation as a trustworthy operator on the node, and you can use trust to create inbound liquidity cheaper than you could otherwise do it. So that's creating balanced channels at open when the mempool is really low, and so you're actually creating that new liquidity like wherever on the network, and it could be small nodes also, because I think that's how the network as a whole grows. So you can start making these partnerships with different nodes on the network, building that liquidity, and then you're able to sell it at a profit to Loop. And that is, I'm using the term selling, but there's some air quotes that go along with that, because it's really just opening a channel, and you've got this understanding that it is one directional traffic. And I think the general assumption should be that most of your channels will be one directional, like unidirectional. So loop is a big sink, and then there's like it's sort of the opposite of loop would probably be like the LN markets node, where you're going to have it'll all be inbound traffic instead of outbound traffic to loop node.
Very insightful. Thank you, Jestopher.
Another interesting point that I think Jess was bringing up earlier was around submarine swaps, right, as a service. I think that's also another interesting area to actually discuss, and especially given the context of how we are seeing the demand of loop service, right, which is essentially a swap service, swapping your off-chain liquidity for on-chain funds. So, when I see that as a trend that, there's so much demand for loop, so I wonder, why we don't have more service offerings like this, because there is clearly a lot of opportunity to make money in this, and essentially submarine swaps like loop are basically exchanges, right? They are exchanging funds in both the direction, from off-chain to on-chain and from on-chain to off-chain. I see only one more service, Bolts, which is offering a similar service to loop. But I think there can be more services which can compete in this market, and especially we'll continue to see this market to be profitable as long as Lightning continues to be a smaller area or compared to on-chain overall ecosystem. So if you look at the overall adoption of Bitcoin on-chain vis-a-vis Lightning is very small. So which means that there are more users of Bitcoin on-chain than Bitcoin on Lightning. So because of that gap, right, there will always be a demand for funds to travel back and forth between on-chain and off-chain, and submarine swap exchanges actually provide that kind of service. So I think it's a good business opportunity for people to set up the infrastructure to operate these type of exchanges.
It seems very interesting.
Absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead, Chaz.
I was just going to say, I find it very fascinating, the idea that, rather than having businesses take over this function per se, obviously, if there's money to be made, they should, but I like the idea of on my node operating software, so on my node, Start9, what have you, you can just roll up a submarine swap service on your local node itself. So you would have some micro version of Bolts or whatever, and try to kind of make it less of a centralized thing, because I think that kind of speaks to what both of you were speaking about there, that they're sinks, like you were saying, and it would be great if you could just give that ability to everybody, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. I think that would make pricing more competitive. When Loop is doing a swap in either direction, the fees are quite sizable, actually. So it would go a long way if we had more providers like that with, maybe some sort of standard interface to offer up that liquidity. That would go a long way. And I think it's important to point out that the Loop service is a centralized service. It's managed by Bosworth right now, right? It's not just like some protocol or marketplace. And that's another misconception that I hear about a lot. But yeah, I'm totally with you, Chaz. How cool would it be if you can just broadcast your rates for swaps, and maybe your pricing is dynamic based on what the on-chain fees are looking like, and we have a race to the bottom in fees for offering liquidity swaps like that up to the entire Lightning Network. That would be amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to see, and I would love to have a service like that, sort of like a kind of decentralized liquidity marketplace. Because you're right, the Loop server is one single point. However, I've been selling inbound liquidity to other folks that just want to get off of Lightning. Say for example, you've acquired a whole bunch of sats on Lightning Network. Now how do you go and move that into cold storage? And I'm really curious about this. With a whole bunch of people coming onto the Lightning Network, like how are they going to move from maybe a really easy to use custodial Lightning solution to like on-chain Bitcoin where they can securely save for the future. So I'm really looking forward to more swap services being able to like efficiently move those sats from Lightning onto on-chain.
Yeah, for sure. And I think having the appropriate controls to get them to a cold storage address that maybe you have on your cold card or your Keystone or whatever kind of air-gapped wallet is really cool and important. So, now we're seeing the fact that on LND you can open up channels from PSBTs, right? And when you're opening them, you could specify what address you want to close it to, but you could also specify that address when you're closing it out. So that's very good. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what other sort of services to facilitate that pop up, and what are the dynamics for people. Like, do people just buy on Lightning to facilitate, their sort of checking account for their expenses on a weekly basis? Do people actually just start saving on it, and then when it gets to a certain threshold in their Lightning wallet, loop out or close their channels to get it to cold storage? It's a very interesting dynamic between your funds on Lightning and on chain. I suspect it'll be a little different for everyone, but just having the tools available to facilitate those transfers is super important.
So Evan, are you ready to drop information about Kraken and the Lightning Network by chance?
I could tell you guys we're working really hard on it. We still have a bunch of stuff to add to make sure everything is running silky smooth for our release. Can't necessarily say when it'll happen. It's really a moving window. I'm fairly confident it'll come out this year, but I can't say much more than that. But yeah, the whole team is working on it really diligently. We've got a great team. I wish I could say all the members that we've got involved on it, but Kraken's got some pretty strict policies as far as people broadcasting that they work there. But yeah, me and Pierre, who I think he's in the chat below, listening in, we talk about Lightning and getting this product out the door every single day. I mean, today we had 2 meetings about it, or 3 meetings, something like that. So yeah, it's pretty nonstop. We're really pushing hard to get it out to everyone, and we're just really excited about having the possibility to work on it and potentially serve such a large user base on Kraken. It's been around for so long, like a decade pretty much, and yeah, we're excited that we're getting close. Beyond that, I really can't say too much, sure. But things are going in the right direction, and I'm getting really excited about it.
Let me ask you one more question on that really fast here. So do you think, like you kind of mentioned, that there's obviously a lot of customers on Kraken, and I would assume some fair amount of them aren't already into Bitcoin and Lightning, they're on there for the shitcoins and such. Do you think the addition of Bitcoin Lightning to Kraken is going to facilitate more people just touching Lightning and playing with it and things like that?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about Bitcoin. I think a lot of people that are dealing with those assets you talked about they have these misconceptions that Bitcoin's the new MySpace or whatever, or that transfers are slow, the technology is outdated. And I think that this is an opportunity to correct those false assumptions in the minds of those people. And, it's not just going to happen by putting up the gateway. It'll go a long way. But it's also going to be an educational effort. And, Pierre and I are scheming up a lot of ways that we can convey these concepts to users. Because, it's quite loaded. There's, a completely different paradigm that you're dealing with versus, transacting with Bitcoin on-chain. I think Pierre's going to join us. Let's see what he has to say. Pierre Rochard, how are you doing today, buddy? Pierre, can't hear you. Maybe he's shy. I mean, we were already talking a lot today, so we could have just exhausted him.
He's
still in the listeners.
No, we also have Ali here. Ali is one of the devs on Hexa Wallet. How's it going, Ali? Glad to have you back.
Hey, Evan. Going great. Thanks for having me. I was wondering, you mentioned, Evan, you tried to use the latest version of LND. I was wondering if anybody tried to use the API for Neutrino in a mobile device. I've been trying to do that actually, without much success though. May not necessarily be something to do with the LND distribution. It could be something I'm doing wrong. So I've been trying to build it via Go Mobile for a iOS and Android target, and then try to try out the APIs. I'm specifically interested in if it saves storage and any other resources on the mobile devices, so that you could make an application which is more suitable for low-end phones, specifically in South America. Based on the analytics that we have for Hexa Wallet, I think the devices are, most of them are Android, and they tend to be low in configuration in terms of RAM as well as processing power. So I was really keen to see how the new version of LND would fare with the improvements in Neutrino. I'm not sure if anybody has done any of the not as such benchmarking, but if anybody has sort of gotten around to trying it yet.
Yeah. So a couple notes there that I could give you. There have been some API changes I have seen. For the stuff that I've been working on, I've noticed that sats per byte, all the reference to it are now sats per view byte. So there is probably a good chunk of other changes in the API. So if you got any services that depend on the API and you're upgrading to 0.13, be sure to go through the gRPC protocol schemas for changes. It's really important. Otherwise, you might break stuff. As far as Neutrino goes, I have not been able to play with that. However, I heard through someone else that there may be some issues with the Neutrino stuff right now for some cases and making payments with Neutrino. So while the Lightning Labs team sounds like they're putting a lot more resources into making the Neutrino experience rock solid, there still seems to be a couple of bugs that are getting ironed out. So yeah, Ali, we're really excited to see what you're cooking up as far as the Light wallet goes and Neutrino. So please keep us posted. Anyone who is messing around with Neutrino too, be sure to sync up with Ali and share notes. And yeah, very excited to see that come to fruition.
No, definitely. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the new LND version. I'm just trying to pace myself before trying different things, and I thought I'll start with Neutrino. Yeah, so if anybody else is sort of exploring the same sort of areas, would love to collaborate, because it'll save both of us a lot of time. I'm not a I'm not a very good Go programmer. I think I'm better at Rust than Go, so I think that sort of is a drawback with me. So yeah, any inputs, anything else would definitely help. But yes, I think the gRPC changes, the parameter changes, the name changes could be a problem, Evan, because I was using my old project, which was sort of working with the previous version. So that could be one problem as well. But yeah, I'll look into it in detail. It wasn't as straightforward as I had hoped it would be. Again, I mean, may not be LND. It could just be my project is really out of date. So I'll have to look into that. But yes, very excited to try it.
Absolutely. And Ali, I sent you another project that might be of interest to you. Check your DMs on Twitter when you get a chance. I think that could potentially help out with what you're working on. A little bit of a different angle to go, but nonetheless, I think you'll definitely want to check it out.
Great. We'll do
so
that.
Yeah, man, keep us posted, and yeah, just excited about all that stuff.
Yeah, and Polar isn't updated, isn't it, with the latest LND as well? It's still using 0.12, I think.
I thought I saw that Jamal had updated it, actually. Let me take a real quick look at the Polar Twitter. Maybe.
Yeah, I didn't want to mess my regular LND node and upgrade it, so I thought I'll first play around in Polar. I really like Polar. So
Ali, 13.0 beta is on Polar right now.
Ooh, nice.
But what you want to do is on that sidebar where you drag in the different implementations into your environment, there's a button at the very bottom. It says check for new node versions. If you click that, it'll pull down the new list of available images for you to pull into the Polar Docker, and you should be able to mess around with it. So yeah, be sure to check that out. Yeah, Jamal's usually on top of things now, especially now that he's working at Lightning Labs. Shouts to Jamal. Polar, for those who don't know, is a GUI interface to create a virtual version of the Lightning Network. And you could drag on different implementations of the nodes. You could set them up however you want. You could deposit funds to them. You can drag lines to each other to open channels. And what you do is you essentially create a great developer environment that's even better than the testnet environment, because you're not dependent on the blocks coming in from the proof of work. You can just create blocks as you see fit and recreate things however you need. So highly recommend Polar. They are on Twitter. Let me see if I could get everyone. So they are at Lightning Polar on Twitter, lightningpolar.com. That's Polar, Polar. Incredible product, and it's helped immensely with developing Zeus. So shout out to Jamal and all the work he does on that.
Yeah, with Polar, the other thing that you save is, I mean, when you get started, I mean, setting up the Bitcoin node is a hassle. Then setting up LND on top of it is a hassle. Creating, different LND versions. I mean, this Polar will do all of that at a click of a button and gives a very good visual representation as well. So, I mean, it really is a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. So, even now that you can have like, partially synced nodes, like you could have, you only need like a couple of gigs of the blockchain. Why do that when you could just spin something up on RegTest and be able to jump into development in just a couple of minutes instead of like waiting, half hour or more to just get your testnet environment set up. So highly recommend that for anyone trying to build Lightning applications.
So
all right.
On a similar topic, I think, with talking about LND and their new version, 0.13, like something that we brought up kind of briefly last week, but I think we didn't go too deep on, were the AMP invoices that are kind of set to become reusable invoices at some point. And I think where my brain went was, LNURL, but what Rusty Russell is working on as far as offers goes with his kind of reusable invoice scheme. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
We should get Lisa on. I think she's in the listeners. Let's get her on. She can get throw more light on that, I think.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Lisa, if you want to hop up here, just send us a request and I'll add you to the stage. That would be great. But no pressure either, you know. Never
Actually,
shy
on that
to hop on stage. What's up, Lisa?
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for joining us again. Do you want to talk about offers and reusable payments, or?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit. I'm laughing because Rusty definitely would be the person to ask. I think he's in, I don't know where he is. His time zone's kind of a little incompatible sometimes. Yeah, so I don't really know too much about the AMP stuff. It's my understanding is it like basically is an improvement or kind of like a revision of how MPP works. So MPP is multi-part payments, and it's kind of like basically it lets you take a payment and split it across a bunch of different paths. The way that MPP works, though. Oh, sorry. Is this useful for me to like explain it? I can like.
I was gonna like that question. What's the difference between AMP or AMP and multipath payments?
Yeah, that's a great place to start.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so for multipath payments, you take an invoice and you, let's say it's for like, I don't know, 100K sats. And MPP will go ahead and split that payment into, let's say, 10 pieces of, I'm going to get my math wrong, 10K parts. And then it will go ahead and find a route for 10 different payments. But it uses the same like pre-image for them. So it'll send 10 different payments down 10 different paths. And then at the other end, the person who's receiving the payment, so they'll like have to wait until all 10 pieces show up before they go ahead and like claim all those 10 payments. So all 10 payments should add up to 100K. And it's easy to like correlate kind of what those are all related because they're all using like the same hash and pre-image. But that was like kind of really quick and easy hacky way to get these like multi-path payments into Lightning Spec. So that's MPP. My understanding of what AMP is, and I haven't really looked at the spec too much, so I might be wrong about this, but my understanding is that AMP basically changes it to use a little bit more sophisticated point magic. So instead of sending, so you have the same kind of like setup. It's like 100K payment. We're going to split it into 10K parts, except when you send each of those payments, then you find it, you do the same as with MPP, you find a new route for each of them. And then, but when you send them, you use a different pre-image for each of them, and through some like magic crypto that I'm not exactly sure how it works exactly, you're not able, I don't think you're able to claim them all until you get all of them or something. But basically it kind of like makes it such that one, like if someone would just so happen to get like two of the same parts routed through their node, they wouldn't know that they're related. And then if for some reason, like, and then when it gets to the other end, the person who claims it, like, can't claim them all until they all arrive. With MPP, you could, like, go ahead and start claiming parts as soon as they started arriving, but that would be a bad idea because then you could, like, lose funds. Anyways, just because of the way that the pre-image and HTLC stuff works. So AMP, I think my understanding is that it basically allows you to like shard payments into like these uncorrelated little payments. So you get basically it's like creating mini invoices, like mini little bitty invoices off of the big one. And they're all like cryptographically related so that at the other end the person has to wait for them all to arrive and then pulls them all at once. But if someone knows like slightly better than me, they should definitely jump in and correct me. So the cool thing about that, and this is like the part that I'm not like totally clear on, is that somehow the fact that now that you have like a way to send so there's like something about how like so AMP then also relates into I want to say like multi-part key send then, because I believe that you can do multi-part key send then. I'm not sure. I'd have to like go and look at it. But I think the idea is that so for those of you who aren't familiar with like how KeySend works, basically KeySend lets you as like a person who wants to pay someone. So there's like the normal way of doing a payment on Lightning involves asking the person you want to pay for an invoice, right? So they give you their own like pre-image and hash, right? And then that's what you use to like make the payment. So they give you a hash and then you make the payment. And then once you've paid it, you get the pre-image back. And that pre-image serves as like proof of payment, basically. It's like the invoice flow, like when you do an invoice. KeySend works a little differently. The person who's sending the payment, if I understand correctly, the person who's sending the payment basically comes up with their own pre-image and hash, hides the pre-image inside of the onion. And so then when you send the KeySend payment, so you don't have to actually talk to the person that you're sending the payment to first. You can just go ahead and send them a KeySend payment. And then when they get it, they like unpack the onion. They pull out they pull out the pre-image that you've sent them, and then that lets them pull the payment towards them that you like have sent them. So they don't have to even know that like a payment is incoming. So I think my understanding is that something about how the AMP like cryptography works, it basically lets you like resend payments, like resend these like KeySend payments, because I think, and again, I'm like kind of guessing here. I mean, maybe I shouldn't say too much more. I don't want to like totally give you guys the wrong impression, but there's something about how like that ability to like kind of have separate little like payment keys, or like how I was talking about how like you can kind of shard a payment and use a different pre-image for each of them. I think something about that means that now you can kind of do like these recurring KeySend payments that are all sort of like. So I think, well, if you think about AMP as like through multipass, right? Like you sent 10 at the same time. I think the idea is that instead of sending 10 at the same time, you send 10 over time, right? So like one at a time, and you can use like a different key, but they're all like related using the similar construction that they use for like this multipath AMP stuff. Again, I'm like really nervous I've like said something totally wrong. I should like go look it up and like post something on Twitter about it so that I can feel like I have a clear conscience here. Anyway, so that's the AMP stuff though. So that's all like the new hotness that AMP is going to introduce to Lightning. Yeah, and so that like, and then so like offers is the way that Rusty Russell has proposed, I think, Bolt 12 as a way of doing a similar thing. And by similar, I mean recurring payments. So the recurrence, like how do you do like subscriptions over Lightning is kind of like this big question, right? Because using the invoice model, every time you want to make a payment, you have to go ask whoever you're paying for an invoice. And the reason you do that is so that you get like, you can have this like proof that you paid them, which is like the pre-image you get back. So you want to get your POP, your proof of payment back. And anyways, it's like, so offers is basically kind of a cool way of constructing like a way of like asking a node for an invoice. So basically it's like an automated invoice ask. So every time that you want to, it basically gives you a route to how to find the node that you want to pay. So the idea is you have an offer, and that can be like a static thing. So you could print out a QR code for an offer and put it on like, I don't know, like a beer tap or something. And as soon as you scan the offer, your wallet will use the offer to go find the node on the Lightning Network that it wants to pay, request an invoice from it. So it'll send an invoice back. And this is all done over the Lightning Network. Sends the invoice back to your node, to your wallet where you want to pay from. So it sends an invoice back, and then you pay the invoice. So basically, wallet creates a way that your invoice can go, or that your wallet can go fetch a new invoice, and then let you pay it automatically. So invoices kind of work off this. Offers sort of work off the concept of like the way that you get recurrence is then your wallet would have like an offer that has like information about how often to pay it again, like let's say once a month, and then your wallet would have like built-in smarts to it that would go and find the node it's supposed to be paying and request an invoice every month, so that like over time you get a new invoice kind of just automatically, and then you could have it like set up in your wallet or whatever, that just to automatically go ahead and pay that invoice every month. This is like kind of different if you compare it to like how credit cards work, right? So like right now, how do recurring payments work on like the credit card network? Basically today, like you give them, it's basically like you give the company your payment info, right? And they go ahead and charge you every month, and there's really no way to like revoke that like credit card info from them without like, I don't know, talking to your bank or canceling your card or something. Whereas with like this offer thing, you go, and since you're the one like requesting the invoice from the node you want to pay every month, then you just don't pay the invoice whenever you want to like cancel your subscription, basically.
So Lisa,
Well,
I wanted to kind of hone in on the main part of the question, I think, is like, so there's going to be these AMP reusable invoices, there's going to be LN URL, and there's going to be offers. Like, what do you think about there being like these kind of multiple competing, I'm not sure I would call them standards, but multiple competing products, platforms, whatever, that would allow you to have reusable invoices? Want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, so I mean, so I think like, and I'm just gonna kind of parrot what Rusty says here, because that seems like a smart thing to do. Like, so the thing that offers really has, I think, and that I think is important, is that you get a new proof of payment for every payment that you do. So like every time you pay someone, you have like a proof that you paid that invoice, and they all kind of like are cryptographically like verifiable. I don't know how LNURL works. I think the biggest like comparison you would make between those is LNURL requires you as a node operator who wants to accept payments using LNURL to like go ahead and set up a HTTP server. So like your node has to be reachable via like normal WebSockets. So like, because my understanding of how LNURL works is like basically it's very similar to an offer. Like it basically lets you request an invoice right from, I'm guessing here, I'm assuming it lets you request an invoice from a node. The real big difference is like the transport mechanism, so to speak. Like, so LNURL, it's over HTTP, whereas an offer would be through the Lightning Network, like through Onion messages themselves. I think like, you know, what do I think about like the fact that there's all these different like protocols? I think it's cool that there's different ways of doing things. I think that each of them will have its own kind of place. Offers, I think, like the nice thing about like LNURL is it doesn't require like a massive network upgrade to work. AMP, I understand, if I understand what Lalu's been tweeting about it, I think it only requires the endpoints to update. So that means that all the nodes in the middle along the path that you want to use to do AMP don't care that you're using AMP. It'll just like seamlessly work across the entire network. So the nice thing about those is that they're pretty much like deployable today, so to speak. You just kind of require the end nodes to support them. Offers thing is a little more complex in that it basically adds to the Lightning Network something called Onion messages, which is basically like it lets you send like non-payment messages through the network. So that like in order to do that, I believe that you have to have every node on the path that you want to send the message able to send those messages. So as far as like timescales and what can we do today and what's possible, I think AMP and LNURL are definitely kind of like the lowest hanging fruit, or like the easiest way to do it without updating or upgrading how the entire network works. Yeah.
Awesome. Great explanation, Lisa. I really appreciate that.
Let's see, the takeaway that I got there for the difference between MPP, the multipath payments, and AMP that we know for sure is that it is a privacy improvement and would kind of disrupt that ability to correlate the various payments and be able to identify those as necessarily related. And then the piece that I was a little bit unsure about was like, could you have like kind of an incremental settlement for those different shards of that multiple path payment using AMP?
That's a really great question. I don't know enough about exactly how they're like doing the shard stuff. So yeah, I am not sure.
Tuned for that.
That is a great question. Jestopher, what do you mean exactly by incremental?
So if you're breaking a payment up into multiple pieces, if some are able to successfully reach that destination, a partial payment might be able to be settled. I know that that's a concern in multipath payments because, well, if not all of them reach the destination, you might actually lose those funds. So I guess you don't really want that. But if like 30% is able to make it, and that can settle, that would be like an incremental settlement of the 100% payment. And then the remaining pieces could come and arrive later.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like the rough thing about doing partial settlement, and again, like I'm saying this like not actually knowing how it works. But the hard thing about that then is like, okay, so you got 30% of your payment. Like, what does that mean for like the product that you're selling or like what you're trying to like actually pay for, right? Like, okay, so I paid for like 30% of an event ticket. Like, does that mean they have to like refund me now, or am I only going to get to go for like 30% of the event, so I think like, and like I'm not really sure, I guess, what like the benefit of partial settlement is. So I would be surprised if they have it such that you can do that, but I might be wrong. I don't know.
Definitely something we got to play
that's a
around
great
with. Note, guys, if you're going to be using AMP or at least receiving AMP, you got to add a flag to your lnd.conf. I think it's like accept-amp. So yeah, it'll be fun to play around with that more in the coming weeks. Let's see if we could do that partial payment.
So with these onion messages, does that mean that our nodes are going to get spammed a little bit more, or is that an attack vector for like a DDoS type attack, or would that affect our HTLCs?
These are great questions. I think the answer to like, does it mean there'd be spam? I think the answer is like yes. So I think for that reason, it is a little more of a I don't know if there's like, I wouldn't say there's like totally consensus that that's exactly the way that we want to go. The cool thing about it is that the cool thing about adding like some of the cool things you can do once you have onion messages though is like you can do like lightning native services. So you could have like offer up a service over the lightning network, and like have people like actually like doing requests or offering things over lightning that you can't do today. But maybe that's not something that we actually like want to like add to the network, so to speak.
Yeah. That's fair. And if it
Hold up, I think we got Shinobi trying to speak. He sounds a little cut off. Shinobi, are you there?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick to Thomas talking about partial settlements with multipath payments. My understanding is like that there's no real utility in that, and the entire design assumption there is just that the receiver not release the pre-image or finalize the payment unless all of them come through. It's kind of just an assumption that the receiver's incentives will make them act like that.
That makes a bunch of sense.
Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I've got a message from an LNURL Dev. I think he's getting the app. He's going to be joining us in a little bit. If OpenNoms is here, OpenNoms would love to have you take the stage, talk about a little new effort that we're working on together. That would be really cool. If not, I will riff on it a little bit. So one of the problems that we have on the app layer on the Lightning Network is we have no uniform format for making a connection from, let's say, a wallet like a Zeus or an external app or a wallet of that kind to your node. We got one format that LND uses in LND Connect. We got different formats that Spark uses, that C Lightning REST uses, that Eclair uses. And we're trying to make a unified format for wallets to be able to connect to nodes that they power. Okay, looks like Noms is here. Let's give him a little approval and you can talk a little bit more about the problems here and our effort. Open Noms, how's it going, man? Noms, you there, buddy? You got it. You got it.
Yes. So yeah, I was playing a lot with Zeus today. It was, it's always a pleasure because it's great. It has so many options, but also I just hit the wall sometimes with trying to get things working, which I've not done before, like connecting C Lightning to Zeus, and it seems I had some problems with the TLS certificates because it's, to my knowledge, it is not longer possible to kind of import a CA certificate to an Android phone anymore, or at least it's not working as the way in a way it was working before.
That's interesting. Do you know when this change happened? Was it with Android 12?
Well, I mean, Android 11 I am on, and the note on the Spark wallet seems to be some time old as well. So, I mean, it's probably around Android 10 or 11. That depends. So, yeah, the usual workflow which is described in Zeus is not working anymore. So, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Noms. I just muted you. You got a little bit of feedback when I'm talking, but I just wanted to say that I am using a version of, what is on here, Graphene. It's based off of Android 11, and I could still import stuff. So if the change happened, it must have happened in Android 12. Sorry, feel free to unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, I can speak.
Sorry about that.
I'm on Android 11 as well. No problem. I'm on Android 11 as well, running Calyx. So yeah, it might just need some work to find out. Anyway, what I did see that, I mean, all applications have some kind of obviously access points. I call it a server, usually a host and a port. Most of the time, I mean, for LND is fixed, for HTTPS, for SSL, encrypted connection. I mean, to be honest, everything should be. C Lightning, I mean, there is a way to run it without SSL encryption, but I don't think we should. And so there comes a certificate, which should be a self-signed certificate just for this purpose. And then we have different formats of the kind of key or macaroon we're using, which is, it's different from application to application. So if we are using, obviously, LND is exposing the RPC interface itself. So it has this macaroon bakery. So you have quite big freedom to kind of export whatever the specific permissions you like. And then with Sea Lightning, we have the Spark wallet or the Sparko kind of server, which does have a similar access with different keys, which you can the same way import to applications. And then there are other things like you can connect to Sea Lightning through either a TCP socket or through a Unix socket, which is remotely it would be problematic. And then other kind of servers like the Charge, LND kind of payment server, or the Sea Lightning REST, which has been working the best so far, or the easiest, as I already had that set up for RTL. To be connected to Sea Lightning, I could connect Zeus.
Did we lose Norms? Yeah, I think we lost him.
Twitter Spaces is a little broken here.
Yeah. But yeah, Evan, do you want to weigh in? Like, what is so basically, what is the initiative? Like, you want to standardize the connection pattern? I saw some posts from Norms. I think he was giving good layout of all the different options to connect with, right? The UI with the node. So, what do you want to? What are you guys proposing? Some sort of a standard to connect?
I wonder if Evan can hear us right now. I'm not sure this is the greatest content right at the moment, but
I was just trying to give you a heart, dude, because I love the things you say, and it crashed the space, but not the Twitter app, and I ended up back on my timeline. So yeah, sorry about that, bro.
Nice, thanks. I can't even do a heart. Anyway.
Oh man, the heart functionality is that's what's crashing everything. Oh man, I gotta let Dorsey know. He's gotta crack some skulls over there. All right, we're adding Keegan McClelland. He is the lead Lightning dev working on Start 9. So we'll get Keegan in the mix. Yo, what's up, Keegan? How are you doing today?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me up.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, bro. And let's get TJ in here. Thomas Jestopher himself. Jestopher, what's up, man? We had some technical difficulties. It seems like all the bugs are not ironed out on Spaces. But hey, I'm just glad we got, all the important people back. Yeah, Jestopher, if we're good and we're recording at least, I'd like for Noms to kick back off where he was. We were talking about.
And he's disconnected.
Oh my god. Love the technical difficulties, Jack, if you're gonna rip off someone else's product, it'd be nice if you did it properly. That would be good. So
Rushed it out the door, man.
I guess beggars can't be choosers, you just gotta be chasing the whims of your investors, do a nice boss job. But hey, at least he's doing some other nice things, so doesn't deserve all my scorn. So yeah, hopefully Open Noms can get back on here. I also sent another invite to our buddy Geistlight. He is a developer working on LNURL. It'd be nice to get him in the mix. Maybe he can give us some insight onto what he's working on. LNURL, super powerful tool. We've got a pull request in on Zeus for one of our bounties to get LNURL channel functionality in. Really stoked about that. Haven't tested that formally, but it's really cool. If you have a balance on a service, you could potentially scan a QR code and have that balance open to you in the form of a channel. So really stoked about that. And then after that, Zeus has got them all except for the real golden goose of the LNURL spec, LNURL auth. Got a sizable bounty up for. I think it's 1 million sats, maybe 1.25. And yeah, we're hoping that we could have someone knock that out. Yeah, just putting up the sats out of pocket for myself. I would work on it if I didn't have a million other things to do myself. But yeah, look out for that. Might put the LNURL channel into 0.5.2 proper, but I need to test that out. Yeah, so while we're waiting for Noms and our LNURL dev, does anyone have anything else they wanted to bring up? What is going on? Oh, we got another request here. Jestopher is back at it. We got Uncle Rockstar listening in. What's up, brother? How are you doing? Hope you're well. Yeah, so anyone see what's going on in El Salvador? I saw we got a really nice presentation, State of the Union, from the president down there. That looked pretty interesting. I saw some more Spanish-based Lightning wallets popping up. I think another one got announced today. Yeah, Jeff was talking about it a little bit. Chivo wallet, so that's good. Looks like they're based in El Salvador too. Curious to see if that's a custodial or a non-custodial solution. Looks like that one requires some KYC though. But really cool to see more like localized solutions for the El Salvadorans down there. So see how that shakes out. Should be interesting. I think we also got some news about Paraguay putting together a Bitcoin legal tender bill. It's pretty interesting.
That
So
I'm not so sure of. Like, that's a single politician putting a bill that he's going to press that has nowhere near the type of support. But open on.
yeah, I mean, it was just came a surprise to me because Paraguay's got their own sovereign currency. So yeah, we'll see how that shakes out. If that happened, though, that would be a damn miracle. But anyway, I digress. Noms, whenever you want to kick it off. Sorry again for having the app crash on you mid-speech, but it's all you, buddy.
Hi, so I'm supposed to be back. Yeah, so just quickly recap this. So yeah, just basically collected how we are, or how the apps I've been playing with, at least connecting to the Lightning nodes. And I mean, there are some patterns, and it would be just, be nice to have some kind of standard in terms of, how we generate a QR code, for example. And so you don't need to have a full list of all kinds of apps, but you can just, you already know what kind of information you need, so it can be just collected in a format which could be similar, at least for all of them. And then you would be able to, have less QR codes, really. You don't need to concentrate on generating so much. And then I just wonder if we, get some kind of suggestions, a bit of consensus, then we might even be able to kind of pull request it into the Lightning RFC repo, the board specifications. So then it could be formal, so people can implement it more, so you can trust that it will stay like that, and it will be just smoother for the app developers and everyone else, really. So that's the aim is, and it's just with this post and just to putting it out there, I just would like to kind of start a discussion, and then waiting for any suggestions and recommendations from anyone.
Yeah, so this is very early days. We're just trying to get some sort of consensus and some sort of working group to figure out what direction things should go. Yeah, so if you're interested in talking about that, reach out to us. We're going to be pretty open about our talks and what we decide to do. Noms, what do you think about just extending LND Connect and making LN Connect? Some sort of format that seems like the way to go.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that LND Connect itself is like a Go. It's written in Go, you don't need Go, right? So you can just use Bash, or just very simple, which has no dependencies at all. So the actual implementation is not that important. It's the format which is. I mean, LND Connect obviously works with macaroons. It has a certificate as an option, so it can be easily a base of a standard. The other thing is, which is implemented for all three major implementations, is the BTC Pay server kind of connection string, which is not that different, but it would be nice if it would be the same, right? Because one starts with LND Connect : ##, the other starts with type equals LND, -rest, and then you either have a colon afterwards or not. I mean, these are the things which is, it doesn't really matter which is it, but it would be nice to be the same. And I mean, we could even go with the kind of BTC Pay standard, which everyone can see on their BTC Pay server kind of server settings. How to connect their Lightning nodes. It's under the stores when you are trying to add a Lightning node, and then we already, I mean, in the REST bullets, and I presume in other kind of packages, we already kind of one-click generate this kind of connection string for LND. But then, as we implement C Lightning, and I mean, in the future, other implementations possibly, then you could just have this kind of connection string there. So it is only good because that's been deployed in biggest numbers, I would think. I mean, you hear people using C Lightning with BTC Pay server, but I mean, that's the point, to kind of get the adoption up, so make it easier to kind of connect to it, make it easier to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I muted you again. Sorry, man. But yeah, as far as forking LND Connect, I mean, something like that format. As far as the spec, that's what I'm more interested in. I'm not really super tied to their Golang, string generator. But at the same time, you also make a really good point about BTC Pay Server and how they sort of led the charge there in, making it pretty clean to connect to all these different nodes. Because with BTC Pay, you could pick what kind of node you spin up. So you could spin up with LND or with C Lightning, and they sort of went and laid down a type prefix in their spec that sort of helps you distinguish between the two. But I think that could even be extended a little bit more, even because there are a couple of different interfaces for C Lightning. But yeah, I mean, we would really like to sync up with the BTC Pay team on that. So Rockstar, if you ever want to talk shop about that, I'll be sure to post in the Mattermost too about it. And yeah, just want to get as many people in the community involved as possible, because this is just like a really annoying challenge, especially for someone managing one of these apps that just has so many connectivity options. Like Zeus lets you connect over LND REST, C Lightning REST, Spark, Eclair, LND Hub. It's like a little much to manage all these different formats. We also support the BTC Pay QR code too. So if we could just get everyone on the same language so that they could just implement one thing once, right, and it covers all the cases, even if some other node wants to come onto the scene, that would be really nice.
There's like two problems here, though, right? So the first one that I at least noticed is that back when we were doing the original research for putting C Lightning onto the embassy, one of the things that we ran into is that C Lightning as a project basically did not recommend, or it basically it said, we have no opinion on it precisely how this is deployed. We're basically going to give you a domain socket to connect to, and then it's kind of your responsibility to figure out how you're going to auth everything. And so there have been a proliferation, I think, of various network interfaces with their own auth materials since then. Basically, usually they're set up by C Lightning plugins, and that isn't a problem necessarily. But what it means is that the interface to connect to C Lightning in general is it doesn't have like an official endorsement from the people who work on it, and so I think that's part of the reason that those standards are proliferating. Secondly, the issue around like sort of encryption and auth, and the fact that getting having a secure connection to anything on the internet, at least historically, has required that you get a certificate signed by, what I typically call the CA cabal, right? Where there's this, reasonably centralized institution that makes, that signs these certificates. And if you don't do that, then you have to somehow input it into it, which is actually half of the value provided by something like LND Connect. The two main things that LND Connect does is it basically encodes the certificate directly into the URL, as well as the auth materials. And so long as we have a heterogeneous set of essentially auth materials where the certificate is authenticating the server to the client, and the auth where the client is authenticating itself to the server, until we can have some sort of standardized system where we can agree what the essential components of those things are, I don't really expect to be able to converge on a particular standard, right? But I think that that's becoming increasingly important. And one of the things that I think that a lot of the node providers have done here is that they've converged on Tor for now, and like we're one of those. Umbrel does that as well. I'm not sure how many of the other ones use Tor for everything, and there are still open questions about whether the Tor network can scale to having everybody have one of these in their own home. But that did at least offer some sort of a method where we can at least get away from the certificate management and stuff.
Great points, Keegan. Yeah, I mean, as far as certs, it's always tricky, especially if there's something that needs to be imported into the system, and the library making a call to the node isn't managing the certs itself. That's one of the problems we have with Zeus right now. So yeah, I mean, Tor is a nice escape from that because you're not dependent on the certs. You just need to know the Tor version 3 hidden service name, and that's good. But also a really good point about whether this thing scales. I mean, Tor is our best friend and our worst enemy at the same time. It lets everyone potentially phone home without having to do any sorts of crazy security stuff like open up a port on your router to phone back home. But it's also wholly unreliable. I was hanging with my buddy Tai Kawamoto the other day, and he uses Zeus too, and the Tor network was undergoing some problems, and neither of us could connect to our node back home. So
yeah, I can actually explain some of what was going on there because we ran into this as well. But basically, a few months ago, and basically ever since, there have been problems with the Tor network coming to consensus on the hidden service directories. And if it can't do that, then basically the Tor v3 URLs, which are those long .onion URLs that you get from either the embassy or Umbrel or whatever, those you can't actually get the hidden service directories to connect you to the result. Now, the Tor team did end up patching this, but the patch was put into a version of Tor that was never actually released for ARM v7. And so many of the node companies, ourselves included, are currently essentially trying to overcome the situation where we are able to get onto a version of Tor that fixes this bug. And so it's kind of just at the behest of the network and whether or not someone's currently trying to perform a denial of service against the hidden service directories.
Wow, very insightful there, Keegan. I didn't know that there was some sort of patch that you could use, but that was just not widely distributed.
And because most of these node companies are operating off of Raspberry Pis, and because there is no official ARM v8 release for Raspberry Pi OS, that's like primarily the reason why all of this is kind of like slow, or like slow to improve, fix, and adopt, because there are like literally OS level architectural barriers, or they're not really challenges so much as just work that needs to get done that just hasn't yet been done in order to get that to be able to incorporate those things back such that the reliability can be improved.
Absolutely. Yeah, keep us posted on that. That's definitely at least encouraging to see that there's some sort of fix there. But yeah, really interesting to see how that shakes out. Would be great to get any reliability gains that we could get on using the Tor network. It's tricky. I don't know what the real solution is. I mean, not everyone is going to want to set up a VPN to connect back home over the clear net. Maybe having another light client wallet that's pseudo custodial might be okay for some people for their essential purchases. Yeah, it's a real shame that we have these challenges with Tor, but at the end of the day, we don't really have a better solution as it stands right now. So yeah, just a lot of challenges there.
Yeah, one of the other things that we've talked about here, and this is something that I know a lot less about, so if anyone can comment on it, actually, I'd appreciate it. But there have been a handful, or there's been basically a spectrum of love and hate for the UPnP protocol. Because the biggest reason that we have to use Tor is because it gives us static addressability, without having to purchase domain names. So most users are not going to have the UX around buying a domain name and getting it all set up is pretty atrocious, and that's why it's kind of reserved for experts, and it's not clear that there's a way around that. And because most consumer internet connections don't offer static IP addresses, you need a domain name with dynamic DNS setup, or you need something like Tor, which is able to dynamically dispatch to the connection to where it needs to be. We have talked about like the UPnP would at least get you to the broader internet, but you still have to end up solving the static naming problem as well as the IP address turnover problem. And if those two things can be done, I think that we can actually rid ourselves of the dependence on Tor. But it's not clear to me kind of what path that would take.
I think whatever path you go on that front, you're sort of trusting a third party, which makes things quite difficult. So you were talking about UPnP, which is universal plug and play. And so it's like a set of network protocols, and essentially it will, get your device, its ports open so that they could be making comms over the general ClearNet internet, right? I think the biggest problem you mentioned there is consumer internet not having static addresses. Typically, you'll go through like a 2-week lease, and your ISP will give you a new IP after that. So, if you have your node set up and you go through the steps of opening up this port on your router, you could potentially have your IP set up, and let's say you're connecting to Zeus on the go, right? And all of a sudden your lease expires with your ISP, and you're like, okay, I can't connect back to my node anymore. So that's a big problem. So one solution I have seen that doesn't require Tor in the mix is like a DNS service, like something like DuckDNS. And basically you'll have to install like a script on your node that phones home to the service and reports back what your public facing IP is. And in that situation, the DuckDNS service is that trusted third party, and you're sort of at their mercy to keep things running and make sure not to direct your dedicated host name to something malicious or try to do any other shenanigans there. So yeah, it's a big challenge. I'm glad to hear you guys are thinking about it over at Start9. And hopefully we could at least give users more options, even if we don't find something that's like de facto better than connecting over Tor. I think there's some trade-offs that users are willing to make to get better reliability. And, I think the space is all about giving the user more options. So that would be cool to see if you guys were able to cook up some other solution on that front to use as an alternative. Maybe you don't use it all the time. Maybe you only use it when you can't connect over Tor. But yeah, I could see that going a really long way for the brand of full node operators that we're trying to cater to. Cool.
Yeah, I don't want to totally consume the discussion on like the intricacies of like network routing and stuff like that, since this is a Lightning forum. But I guess these are all considerations as we try to bring Lightning to the next billion users or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. What other challenges are you seeing? Because I'm right in saying you're sort of leading the charge for Lightning services on the Start9 embassy, right? What other problems are you seeing you're having developing stuff, and what are you hearing from users? What the biggest pain points are? I know you had a tweet yesterday sort of trying to survey the user experience.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, Lightning is just not intuitive to the average person, and that's fine for now, because I think a lot of people who are experimenting with this stuff are enthusiastic about it. But I'm finding that a lot of our problems are just solved by education, but that's a little bit harder to scale than good product design. The problem, though, is that a lot of times, sometimes the seamless product design that you can create ends up introducing trust assumptions that the whole reason that any of this was invented to begin with was to rid yourself of trust assumptions. And unfortunately, while companies like us and, you know, things like Lightning and Bitcoin itself can give you a lot of leverage on your own, I guess, responsibility, we can't do everything for you. And so it's really just about trying to find those like high points of leverage where it's like, what can we give the users the minimum set of decisions that they need to make in order to be able to preserve their own sovereignty, but kind of take care of the quote unquote details. And that's kind of an ever evolving discussion because, you know, so here's a perfect example, right? Like a lot of people are really excited about things like Moon Wallet, Phoenix Wallet, Breeze Wallet. And if you've ever used those wallets, they have an absolutely fantastic user experience. The onboarding is so smooth, and they've really nailed a certain portion of that. But what is less often talked about is what you end up giving up in the process. And first and foremost, mobile nodes don't have the same levels of reliable uptime that servers do. Typically because, you know, they can go out of service, and, you know, your battery dies on your phone sometimes, especially if you're trying to run like basically full node software off of your phone. And so if you're the only place that you're running LND is on your phone, then what ends up happening is that your counterparties, at least in the current Lightning specification, the punishment scheme relies on your eternal vigilance in order for you to be able to trustlessly retain your funds. And so mobile first nodes without the presence of watchtowers are usually not sufficient. But the nodes that are on these wallets via Phoenix, Breeze, or Moon, they don't give you really the opportunity to set up your own watchtower stuff. And they don't really also give you the ability to, at least last time I checked. So if I'm wrong as of a recent release, like, please tell me. But the last time I checked about this, those three wallets didn't allow you to open up your own direct channels with places. And even Phoenix goes as far, as I understand, to actually delegate route construction to the async corporate infrastructure, which means that you have privacy leaks about who you're paying. So these are all things that are potentially acceptable trade-offs to people, but they're not well documented and well understood. And one of our focuses at Start9 is to give you the maximally sovereign experience, and a lot of times that comes at the expense of UX. And it's because we are trying not to introduce any net new trust assumptions when people are using our stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of challenges with just trying to do this on the internet. Like, I guess, like, for remote connection, the problem really lies in the fact that the internet sort of has this centralized choke point in the form of DNS and how, you know, domains are resolved. I mean, even last week we saw the Department of Justice seize all those Iranian media domain names. Like, that's ridiculous that, you know, it's 2021 and we still have these centralized points of failures that, you know, if you're just saying the wrong thing online, you could just be have your domain, like the place people access you through, like in their browser, like, just be seized. Sort of ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges in trying to work and create consumer-facing applications for these decentralized techs on an internet with these sort of centralized choke points, despite all the other great decentralization we see on the web, and how we could route around that. So yeah, that's really interesting, and really interesting to hear you talk about, you know, these UI challenges and people having to make trade-offs in terms of that user experience, and how you guys are trying to cater to the people who are willing to take those sacrifices in terms of like what their user experience looks like and able to have their full privacy and sovereignty on the web. Because, you know, if we're looking at people who, you know, are, for example, using this tech in El Salvador or in other developing nations, like, they just want it to work. Like, they don't care about the privacy or the sovereignty aspects of it. Like, that's not like really a huge factor for them at the end of the day. So you have these great challenges in trying to not only provide services and apps and platforms that do optimize for ultimate liberties for the users, but also educating those users and like trying to convey like why these tools are important, like why like a Star 9 or like a Zeus or any of these open source projects where you do have full control of your own finances in Bitcoin are important.
Do you think something like impervious.ai is going to play a part in, not necessarily in the node like operator portion, but in the kind of DNS centralization piece that you were mentioning here?
Not necessarily DNS, right? But some of the pain points we have with VPNs and the controls that they have in our lives. So I don't know all the details of Impervious. I know we got Anthony Roning. He's listening in. What's up, brother? Maybe he could speak to that a little more. But if what my understanding of the protocol is right, like anyone could spin up one of these instances on a VPS or personal computer and then broadcast their rates of what they're willing to have people pay them in terms of bandwidth in sats on the Lightning Network, and you could potentially chain these connections together, then this could be like a grand slam. Like you get some of the assurances that the Tor network gives you, but potentially with more speed as long as you're willing to pay for it. I think anything that adds that economic incentive to provide quality services can I think it can go a really long way in providing a better experience to people who have these sort of issues that they want addressed. Let's see, I think Anthony is going to join us. So let's see. Yo, Mr. Roning, how are you doing today? Can you hear me?
Yeah. So guys, I missed part of it. The spaces crashed, and then I thought it was over. So,
spaces crashed? No way, dude.
Yeah. But I did catch the tail end on like the DNS stuff. We were literally talking about today at Impervious, like the idea of having a sort of like bottom up sort of Lightning naming service that you could add. Basically Lightning nodes, kind of defining, URLs if you want to think about it that way. And then, you could still have these distributed naming services that are, that are kind of incentivized to give you the correct resolve and things like that. There's a lot of like attack vulnerabilities there. So like, it's literally just an idea that we just sparked up today. But yeah, with Impervious, the thing I like about it the most is sort of like, we already have, all these always online Lightning nodes running on like maybe Raspberry Pis or servers somewhere. So like, let's take advantage of them and like add on services on top of it and have this like payment system already natively built in.
Very cool. Very awesome to hear that you guys are talking about the very issue we were just discussing right there in DNS and host name resolution. So yeah, again, man, I want to say congrats on the new gig. I think that's a really awesome match, and I'm super intrigued by the concept, and I think it's really sound in a lot of ways. I'd love to see the implementation, so make sure I get in on that beta, man. You got to bump me up the list. But really excited to see what you guys cook up over there.
Yeah, thanks a lot, dude. That means a lot. And yeah, for sure. When we're ready, you're on the top of the list in my mind.
Yeah, no worries, man. I know making new software like this can be, a huge challenge. So, no rush over there. And yeah, good luck with everything. That's going to be really awesome.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'm gonna get back to my food, but I'll be listening in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anthony. We'll talk later. All right. So that's the new Lightning-based VPN that is in development right now. I believe the URL is impervious.ai. They got a beta waiting list up there. I would sign up if you guys are interested. But I think Anthony made some really interesting points there mainly pertaining to, we have these nodes that we're running in our house, a good chunk of us at least, and this thing is running 24/7. Why not, take advantage of those properties that it's offering us to help our online lives in other ways? Like, I think a good example of that is LN auth, where you got this node, it's got your finances on it. You're going to go through the measures to make sure A, it's like running, and B, you could have it backed up, at least the channel states and the seed phrase to recreate it at the very least, right? I would hope. Why not use this node as either your way to log in LNURL or at least a second authentication factor? So hearing Anthony talk about like, okay, why not leverage this for DNS is super intriguing to me. So yeah, we'll definitely keep our eyes open on what they're cooking up over there. Really cool stuff.
Quick question. How difficult would it be to migrate Channel DB to another implementation? I was talking to a good friend last night who's using Eclair, and he found it like difficult, because he had to close all those channels when he wanted to go to LND. So is there any potential way to do that, or are there any other like hindrances that would be like probably too burdensome to overcome? Any ideas?
So from my perspective, there's a couple challenges there. So first and foremost, it's the format of the data that these implementations are using. Like, not only are they using different databases and whatnot, you could get over that, but mostly I think the actual format of the state that they're using is a little tricky. But I think that can be overcome too. I think the bigger challenge is making sure that you have like the actual up-to-date state. Because if you're transferring over to another node, or hell, and even another implementation, I know that's a bigger lift, but if you're making this transfer over, and while you're doing it, your timing is off, maybe someone puts in another transaction afterwards and changes the state of your channel, and you go to your new node, and you broadcast a state that's like maybe a couple of transactions off, your counterparty can then call you out on that, and the channels that got updated, you're going to lose all the funds for. So I think that's the bigger question. I think like it's.
I guess L2 maybe would make it safer, especially when that comes out, I guess, right?
The channel backups. Yeah.
If we are going to like create migration tools, like obviously, I'm only going to speak to the use case of intra implementation. So like you want to move from one LND to another. You can, I think, the important thing is that you enforce move semantics, right? You have to shut down the node, right? Because channel state cannot be updated while the node is offline. Like no matter how hard your peers try to update channel state with you, if you shut down your node, they can't do it. So if you shut down your node, then you move the data, as in you copy it to the new location and delete it from the original location, it is completely safe to do that. However, that's not necessarily something that's going to be advertised to the average user, and it would probably end up having to be delegated to migration tools themselves. And I think that that's actually very, very possible and actually quite likely. It was one of the things that came out of the discussion between the node companies last week on one of Odell's podcasts. But like, I think that there is this general like optimism and willingness to do it intra implementation. The trouble is that when you're moving between something like LND and C Lightning, not only are those formats different between the implementations, but they're different within the implementations from version to version. It's just that the migrations from say like LND 0.12 to LND 0.13 or C Lightning 0.8 to 0.9 or whatever, those teams write the migrations for them if they end up changing those data formats. And so you would, at the very bare minimum, need some sort of standardized set of data, or you would have to maintain essentially an n squared, albeit n is small here, set of translations between the data formats. And I suspect, but would love to be proven wrong, that the effort required to make that happen is not going to be worth it, at least for quite some time. because at the end of the day, like, you can still close channels, and depending on the costliness of that versus the costliness of maintaining the translation layers is going to dictate whether this happens or not.
Yeah, very good points there. Yeah, for like inter implementation transfers, like I feel like most of all the implementations of Lightning rather, held out their plates full. Like, things are still moving really rapidly, and I think that these sort of migrations are sort of the last thing that these protocol level guys want to be working on. So I wouldn't hold my breath on that part. So yeah, great question, Vivek. Very good question. Are you trying to transfer over to another implementation, or are you just your buddy who was on Euclid and wanted to move over to something else?
I was just curious because, like, I guess if it's like too difficult to figure out standardizations for certain features you want in a specific implementation and you were going to move, like, maybe this would be the lowest cost thing to do to make it easy for someone to switch over for that feature.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Yeah,
I guess a lot of this also depends on precisely how, quote unquote, complete the notion of channel state is, because I know that there's currently a lot of different sort of avenues of innovation that are happening in the Lightning spec itself, whether it's actually fully in the spec or not. For instance, anchor outputs were just added to the spec. And I know that, like, dual funding is something that is sort of forthcoming in the spec. Splice in, splice out is. And I'm not smart enough on the actual spec details to know whether or not that has implications on the fundamental data that needs to be stored on channel state. But if it does, that will make it difficult as some of these implementations try to pursue their avenues that set them apart, because they'll be forced to add data to the channel state, at least if what I'm saying is true. They'll be forced to add data to the channel state that won't be part of the standard. And then in that case, not only that, but like, if the feature doesn't port over to the other node, like, how does that data get maintained? Does it get lost during that migration? Like, is there a way to preserve that data if you ever decide to move back? It can get very messy very quickly if there isn't a notion of quote unquote completeness on the actual channel state itself.
Yeah, excellent point. Just, keeping that migration spec updated and taking into account all the differences between the different versions. Like, no one wants to maintain that, and not right now. It's like it would be ridiculous. So yeah, like I said earlier, don't hold your breath for those sort of changes. That sort of functionality across inter implementation. So yeah, I think for now your best shot is really to just spin up that new instance and phase out your old pub key over time, or
just pay yourself.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely a lot of challenges there. All right, so we are coming up on, what is it, a 2-hour mark right now. I think it's been an awesome discussion. So I think we're going to go like another 10 minutes or so, and we'll call this. So any other listener who has a question or like they want to bring up, here's your time to put in a request to speak, and we'll let you up on stage. Don't be shy. We don't bite. Well, most of us don't.
No questions? I guess if you don't have any questions, one of the other things to talk about is, like, if you have like features that you're really excited about that aren't landed in whatever your software stack of choice is, like, communicating those. Like, I think a lot of us who work on this stuff, sometimes it's not necessarily easy to know exactly what users care about at any given time, what their biggest pain points are. I was actually trying to solicit some of this on Twitter yesterday, but I think, you know, there are a lot of listeners in the audience who actually work on a lot of different parts of the Lightning software stack. So if you're like, you know, angry about something not working right, or you really want like a particular feature to land, that's another like thing that would be good feedback.
Sorry if
absolutely.
you mentioned this earlier. I kind of had to walk away for a second to start getting dinner ready. But have you guys looked at the Galoi stack used down in El Zante and considered integrating that as part of the like service suite?
Is that directed to me?
Yeah, Keegan.
No, so Galoi as a name only popped up onto my radar about like 3 days ago, and it's popped up actually several times in the last 3 days. So no, I haven't looked at it. And so as a result, I can't tell you whether or not it's viable or not viable or whatever. But if that's something that you're interested in, I will absolutely add this to the list of things for me to look at.
Yeah, it's like a little custodial bank stack that does on-chain and Lightning support, but it's like the stack running like the kind of community bank down there. I just think like that would be like a perfect thing to have for something that's trying to be like the little sovereign server for everything. Like you're talking communications, like protocols, other services like that. Like why not that? Like then anybody with the device could just become a Bitcoin bank for everyone around them.
I think we've seen the node services right now sort of gravitate towards the L&D hub solution, which is the sort of the Lightning backend server from the Blue Wallet guys. I believe it's on Umbrel. It's on MyNode. There might be one more that's supported, but you know, Galoi is a cool little stack. I think there's got some differences that Nicholas has coded in there that distinguish it from L&D Hub. But namely, I think that could be a good idea because the El Salvadorans down there on Bitcoin Beach, they're already familiar with Galoi's front-end interface. It would be nice that if they needed to, they could jump and connect to a different provider that was running the Galoi stack on, say, their node. You know, I think that would definitely be worth looking into at the very least, just to help fortify the ecosystem down there. So yeah, that would be cool to see. Oh, I think we got someone else on stage. We got Crypto Cliffy. What's up, Crypto Cliffy? If you want to ask any questions, ask away.
Hey, Evan. Thanks, guys, for hosting this. Just had a question. Like, I've been using Zeus wallet from quite a while. I'm using the REST API over the Onion router. The problem is like there is a connection instability. Like sometimes it works great. I can send, receive everything, but sometimes it just times out. So I remember just some time back you mentioned there is some updates on ARM 97 or something on Raspberry Pi. So that could be one of the issue. I'm not sure. Like I'm just guessing because there is so much information. It's always confusing.
Yeah, no problem.
Is it? Yeah, and one more thing is like I've heard sometimes like in the Matt Odell podcast, like NVK say and also OpenOM say, like they are not a big fan of Raspberry Pi because of some stability issues. Are these all related? And if they are, like, is there any recommended devices like other than Raspberry Pi that we can use to overcome? Because the stability of Lightning Network is the only thing that makes me gravitate towards custodial or semi-custodial Lightning because it's like much better experience. So just like if you can throw some thoughts on that.
Yeah, sure thing, Crypto Cliffy. So, one thing first, as far as what other devices are out there for these platforms, the other popular board that people are using for these sort of pre-built projects is the Rock 64. Unfortunately, that uses the same chip architecture as the Raspberry, which is also ARM based. So it's going to also have the Tor problems that they're experiencing over on Start9 and all these other implementations. You could always, decide to run your own server, right? 1 second, Keegan. You could always run your own server on Intel or whatever, and sort of have like a more solid version of Tor running your stuff. But I would just hang tight. I think that these guys are going to cook up a solution on ARM to have a more stable version of Tor that has these V3 services sort of patched up and running a little more securely. I know Zeus also has some timeout problems with the Tor connection you make, and I promise you in the Zeus redesign, we're going to have a little more granular controls for the Tor connection. So if your Tor connection times out, we're going to let people get a new identity and reconnect to Tor in the app without having to kick the wheels on Zeus and reboot it up again. So I could promise you that we're at least going to make things as stable as possible on the Zeus side of things. And yeah, Keegan, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, just
no worries,
wanted
man.
to
I
get
was
that
actually
out there.
interrupting you, so.
Yeah, no worries, man. I know you're just itching to explain and add some clarity, so it's all you.
Yeah, I guess the question I have towards Cliffy is precisely what you mean by instability, because there are a number of things, there are a number of different dimensions to this problem. One of the ones that was mentioned already is Tor stability, which is actually independent of the Raspberry Pi as a physical board, right? It's more tied to the ARM v7 architecture, which is the Rock 64 is likely going to be ARM v8, although I haven't looked directly into it. But there's that piece. There's also the piece of, I know that Odell really harps on, and he's right about this, which is the doing all of your storage on micro SD cards is dangerous. And that's actually the primary motivator for the forthcoming 0.3 update to the embassy, which will move everything to solid state drives. But like, if you have a better idea of what you mean exactly by stability, because as far as I know, the Raspberry Pi board itself is actually very solid. It doesn't really have a lot of stability problems, but there are other parts of the stack that could definitely use improvement with respect to stability, namely the Tor and whatever storage media that you're using.
Yeah, with stability, I'm just I'm speaking about the connection issues. So it always times out. I've noticed once it's connected, it shows all my balances and everything. After that, it works fine. But like initial connection, it always times out. So just one more thing, if there is a way to increase that timeout, one of the question is that whether it's possible to increase the timeout. I can wait till the connection is acquired and I get all the information so I can work with it.
Do you use,
other thing is yeah, go ahead.
Do you use iOS or Android?
I use Android.
And I'm assuming you're using it with Orbot?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm able to use it. It's not that I can't use it. It's just when I start it up, maybe 6 times out of 10, it will just time out. So I'll have to restart it or something just to get the connection to the node over Tor.
Evan, does Zeus bake the Tor implementation into the Android APK, or does it use Orbot?
So recently, or somewhat recently, I believe, in version 0.50, we got a new library for Tor. It is built into the app now.
Okay.
Crypto Cliffy. So instead of using Orbot, you can just go into your node connection settings and check the use Tor checkbox. hit save, and from there on out, Tor will get spun up in Zeus. So hopefully you get a little bit better connection with that. I think it's been pretty good. We're still tweaking stuff like our timeout and adding the ability to kick open a new identity. So look out for that. Give that a go. Hopefully that's a little better for you than Orbot. And also iOS users should know that the same functionality exists on the iOS version of the app too. So check that out, please.
It's definitely a thing to try, but I would actually be surprised if that actually yields better results. And the reason for that is that, well, and I'm less familiar with the intricacies of how the Android operating system handles background apps, but just for some background, the way that iOS does it is that when you background an app, iOS is very, very strict about it cutting off all of your socket connections. The OS will reclaim all of your sockets, and you won't be able to reuse them until you reopen the app. And one of the consequences of this is that when you bake the Tor binary into the iOS, it has to actually bootstrap the Tor connection every time you foreground the app. And so that likely goes into that process is part of the timeout that you're experiencing, because not only do you have to boot up the Tor process, you have to wait to connect to the Tor network, then you have to establish your initial connection to the hidden service, which takes significantly longer than subsequent communications. And all of that is likely happening under some sort of timeout that is set by the actual application layer. And so one of the, I think, advantages of something like Orbot here is, especially when it's running in VPN mode, is that you're able to amortize the cost of the connection to Tor and the connection to the hidden services themselves over the lifetime of your operating system being up, as opposed to iOS, which is actually terrible in this way, which is that every time you foreground it, you have to start over. And so I don't know exactly, Evan, if the way that your Tor library in Android requires that you rebootstrap every time the app is foregrounded, but if you are actually currently doing it in this way, then I might actually recommend trying to do Orbot in VPN mode, because our customers and my colleagues who are on Android experience far fewer problems than I do, which because I'm on iOS and I have this problem where the Tor binary has to be bootstrapped each time.
Gotcha. I think it's less the library, more so the way that we've tied into the app. So like I said, it's something we're definitely trying to iterate on and make a better experience. So I think when you get that timeout, that red status screen in Zeus, we're going to add a couple of buttons so that you can try to reconnect to the network and get a new identity. So yeah, it's definitely finicky right now, and we recognize that. And there's the underlying issues of the Tor network that are always going to be a little bit unreliable, but we can definitely make some improvements, and that's what we plan to do. So hopefully we can get a beta out, or alpha or something, for the new Zeus redesign that has a couple of those changes in it too. And in the fall, we're hoping to have a fully fleshed out general release of that. So yeah, really looking forward to that project. It's coming along. The actual designs are like 98% done, and work just started last week on integrating some of that. So yeah, Crypto Cliffy, keep your eyes peeled for that. If you have any other questions or need help troubleshooting, just feel free to shoot me a DM, and that goes to anyone. My DMs are open on Twitter, and as long as I have the time, I will try to get back to you.
Thanks, Evan.
Yeah, anytime.
Just one more question. Like, I was wondering, like, if I know that privacy is important, but just in case we use public IP address and try to connect the node, what are there any major risks that because if we start to do port forwarding and try to access our node through a public IP address, supposedly the connection will be a bit stabler, because if we use just the local IP address, we cannot use it outside the Wi-Fi area. So if I want to use it over the internet, I can use a public IP address, just exposing that the Lightning node. So, like, do you think there are there are major concerns when it comes to exposing the node, node
Uh,
IP address?
yeah, I mean, the attacks that can be done on it are quite difficult, and they really do need to be done by an advanced attacker, but they're not impossible. To expose your node like that, you do have to open up a port on your router, which is a security concern for sure. And then you also have the public IP leakage that you're broadcasting what your home IP address is at the moment. That has some potential problems too. So yeah, I mean, while you would get these gains, unless you're really experienced and you know what's on your network, and you've set everything up correctly so that only that device's port is open up, and I really wouldn't do that without like proper network segmentation and security controls, which I know is like a little crazy to say. It's not really doable for the average person.
There's also, I want to explain something about the way that Tor v3 hidden services work that is in stark opposition to the way that your public IP is. First of all, your public IP, you can essentially poke around on the broader internet, and while the things like the TLS certificate, so I was speaking strictly from L&D's point of view, the TLS certificate and the macaroon stuff serve as very, very strong authentication mechanisms. The being able to even knock on the front door of the node is a meaningfully different amount of surface area than the case of the .onion address. And the reason for this is that the Tor v3 .onion addresses, the really long ones, not the short ones, they have a property that is essentially a blinding key, which doesn't allow anybody on the Tor network to be able to enumerate all of the existing hidden services. So they can't just go, quote unquote, door to door knocking on the front door and seeing what's there the way that they can with public IP addresses. And so that isn't a security hole per se, but it is surface area that you expose yourself to in the process. At the same time, anybody who runs like a truly like high capacity public routing node is doing exactly that. Like they're on the public broad internet with the static IP, essentially waiting to have their door knocked on. So it's not that it can't be done, but it is definitely surface area that it does not necessarily exist for Tor only nodes.
Gotcha. All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll just step down.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think on that note, we got to call it here today. Running like a cool 2 hours, 12 minutes. We did have some technical difficulties, but I think we overcame for the most part. So I want to thank everyone who tuned in today for coming up, especially those who came up and asked questions and added to the discussion. I want to thank everyone who joins us on a regular basis. And thank Chaz for being a great co-host, as well as Jestopher, especially grateful for you recording. Just really stoked to be able to like guide this discussion and talk with so many great people who are working on so many amazing things and paving the future of what this Lightning Network is going to look like. So I hope you guys all have a really nice weekend. This has been an incredible Lightning Friday. And guess what, guys? I got some good news. We're going to be back again next week. And I'm sure the discussion will be just as good, hopefully. So, on that note, see y'all on the Lightning Network.
See you on the Lightning Network, everyone.
Or will you?